Flexbox is a one-dimensional layout model. It deals with the layout in one dimension at a time, either row or column. Here we have a div tag containing 3 items in it. So now when you apply the container display property as flex, they are arranged horizontally by default. Flexbox operates with the 2 axes. By default, main axis is horizontal, left to right. Cross axis is vertical, top to bottom. The main axis defined by flex direction property and the cross axis run perpendicular to it. The default value for the flex direction is row, that is left to right, horizontal. If you change to row reverse, the main axis will switch to right to left. Now if we change the flex direction to column, arranges flex item vertically along the main axis, because once you change the direction to column, the main axis changed vertically and cross axis is horizontal. It is top to bottom. If you add a column reverse, it will change the direction to bottom to top. So whatever it is, the flex box always arrange items based on the main axis where it flows. We can align items based on the main and cross axis. So the justify content property is used to align items on the main axis. Default value is flex start. The short form you can write as start as well. You can modify this flex end or short form as end, which aligns item at the end of the main axis. So 1, 2, 3. If you set it to center, so it will position at the center of main axis. So if you have more empty spaces inside the container, we can efficiently utilize the empty spaces using this property. Space between. So that here first item is placed at the start of the container, last item placed at the end of the container, and the remaining space is distributed equally between the items. So space around, so it has equal space between the items, and also distribute half of the spaces before the first item and after the last item. So there is a evenly total space is divided equally between the items as well as space before the first item and after the last item. So mostly when compared to space around, space evenly looks more appealing actually. Aligning items along the cross axis is align items. The default value is stretch, but if the flex item have height, then it will take first. Let's save this, so it won't take any effort. That's because it has the height. If you remove the height of the flex items, then flex items will occupy full height of the container. That's because the default value of the align item is stretch. Now if we change the align items to start, so the items will move to the top of the cross axis and it won't occupy the full height. If we can change flex end or end. So align items at the end of the cross axis, that is bottom of the cross axis. So if we change it to center, centers items along the cross axis. So now we have a baseline. Comment this. To understand the baseline, let's change the font size of the item to as 25 pixels. So now you can see every text baseline are same. It has empty space on top 1 and 3, but all are sits in the same text line. So this is particularly useful for text contents. Now let's add more items to the container. We add 8 items. Currently it is shrinking all the items by default. If we don't want to shrink items, we can use flex wrap. By default it is no wrap. If we add it as wrap, so this will be wrap items. If there is no room for flex item, then it will wrap. Now let's just add a height of the flex container. Let's say 200 pixel. Change the direction to column. So this will allow items to wrap vertically because the main axis is now oriented vertically. So we have a shorthand property called flex flow. The first value will be flex direction, let's say column reverse. Second value will be the flex wrap value, here wrap. So if I comment this, yes, nothing happens because both value is similar. Now if you change the flex flow first value as row, so it will change based on the main axis. When we add flex wrap set to wrap, a new property is unlocked. Property name is align content. So when flex items wrap onto multiple lines, it creating flex lines actually. So each row as per align content, it is a flex lines. So this determines how these flex lines are aligned along the cross axis when there is extra space available. All the align content property similar to the justify content. So let's say flex start, align the flex lines at the start of the cross axis. The short form you can use start. So similar to flex end or end. If you add center axis, so space between, space around evenly. So it has one more property called stretch. Though items has height, I comment this, you can see the stretch. So when the direction is column, the align content is based on the cross axis, so it is horizontal. That means it should not have width for this, otherwise the stretch won't work. So you need to remember, justify content is for main axis, so align items and align contents on the cross axis. And there is a shorthand property called place content. So the first value will be the align content, last value will be the justify content. So if we change it to start, justify as end, face evenly center. Remember, when align content is used, align item property no longer controls the alignment of individual flex items on the cross axis. So let's keep the align items and align content. So let's say here I am changing it to center, but it takes no effort because align content is available. So if align content is not available, then align items take into effect. Now there is a one more property called gap. Let's say gap for 10 pixel. Using gap property eliminates the need to manually add margins to create space between the items. If you provide one value, it sets both row gap and the column gap with the same size. So if you provide two values, let's say 10 pixel for row, 20 pixel for columns. So you can see column takes more space. So you can specify separately as row gap 10 pixel, column gap. We comment this, so same, let's say increase the 25 pixels. So the gap is a shorthand property for row and column gap. Till now we only understand flex container properties. To have more control over flex items, we can target them directly. So let's remove other items. Let's save this. So let's take item 2. Flex grow used to determine how flex items should grow relative to each other along the main axis when extra space is available. Let's say for item 2 I gave flex grow as 1. This one takes all the extra space for their width. That's because the main axis is horizontal. Let's say if I change it to column, now the remaining extra space take as a height for the flex item. Change it to row. So if I set item 3 flex row as 3, so now flex 3 takes more space when compared to 2 and 1. So the flex grow will determine how the flex item should grow relative to each other based on the flex grow property. You can see clearly this with, you can, if I apply it to only one property, the grow is taking more. Similar to growing, we have a shrink property. So this property is used to specify how much flex item should shrink relative to each other when there isn't enough space along the main axis. So if we set to for higher value to the flex item, it will shrink 4 times as quickly as other two items. When space is limited, grow, it will work. When space is, so if we set to wrap, it will wrap anyway. If we set to no wrap, if it is shrink, the higher value shrinks more. So if you want to understand it more, let's remove this text, say flex 5 here. Now you can see how it shrinks. So you can see the third item shrinks more because it has the higher flex shrink value. So you need to remember, higher value in flex grow allocate more available space to them, while higher value in flex shrink causes it to shrink rapidly when compared to other items. We have one more property called flex spaces, item 1. So this will set initial size of the flex item. If the item don't have the size, that means width and height, if we have a flex basis, then that will be applied. Let's add 150 pixel to the item 1. So when the flex direction is row, it acts as a width. When flex direction is a column, it acts as height. So you need to consider, because this flex base is based on the main axis. Now let's add flex basis for item 2. We have a shorthand property, name is flex. The first value for the flex is grow, second value is shrink, third value is flex basis. So if I remove this, you can see no difference because now everything is in one property, 250 pixel. So instead of 3, now it has 1. We have one more property called align self. These properties allow you to align a single flex item along the cross axis. Align self as center. So now this second property now aligning in the center place. It's overriding the align content or align items property. Item 3 align self end. So currently all the elements are placed according to their position in the HTML document. If you wish to rearrange the order of flex items, you can use order property. By default, order value is set to 0 for all the flex items. So you want to position them as 4, 2, 1, 3. So the fourth value is the first one, so we need to add order 1, and second value as position 2. The first value is 3, third element in the fourth position. So now we can see 4, 2, 1, 3. So we change the position based on the order.